for our project, we focused on Madisonville and the stormwater management in the community. As you can see from this map, Cincinnati itself as a community has a lot of problems with stormwater management, and these red dots represent overflow sites within the city. And so you can see it's widespread throughout the community. And the problem with stormwater in Madisonville and also Cincinnati and a lot of older cities in the United States is that they have combined sewers. So when the infrastructure was laid over like 100 years ago, the drainage from the streets and the sewage pipes are the same. And so when it rains a lot, these overflow, and what happens is it'll flow out into the street, it flows out, it runs off down the creek beds, flows into Duck Creek or Mill Creek, and eventually into the Ohio River. So that's a problem. So you can see it's widespread throughout the city, and we focus in on Madisonville right here, and there's 13 sites identified as combined sewer overflow problems. So I just wanted to represent a couple of them. They can occur in a park like this. This right here shows it draining directly into a creek bed, intersections that are busy. So it's kind of a widespread problem that can occur anywhere. And so we decided to look at this sort of as a whole community problem, and we took 4 different aspects. We looked at it from the social aspect of stormwater management and runoff, the environmental aspect, safety, and economics. So in social terms, if you have a stormwater problem in your community and there's a lot of runoff, you have muddy sidewalks, things like that, it's sort of like the broken window theory. If you're going through your community, it's not going to look very nice. People are going to think it's run down and nobody cares about it, and that affects the sense of pride in the community. Environmentally, we kind of covered, but I already kind of talked about. But poor drainage, runoff into creek beds, contamination, because everything that comes off the road, oil, gasoline, it runs into the creeks as well. In terms of economics, if you're looking for a house and you want to invest in a community, you're not going to want to live in a neighborhood where the front yard looks like a pond every time it rains. And then in terms of safety, just poor drainage problems. It's unsafe for pedestrians, cyclists, motorists, leads to accidents, things like that. And so these are the existing conditions of Madisonville streets. There's basically 4 different types. You have the traditional curb and gutter. You have unimproved streets, which means no curb, no gutter, no anything. It just kind of, the roadway goes right up to the grass. And then actually the cities, they put permeable pavement in some locations like this. And then we have the other miscellaneous category, where either residents were tired of parking their car in an area with mud, or the city went out and did it, but they laid down gravel right here just to cover up the mud. It was kind of a do-it-yourself fix, which may not actually work. And so after we sort of analyzed the existing conditions and what was going on in the city, or in the community, we decided to look at solutions that would sort of help mitigate these problems. And we looked at several solutions. Not all of them are included on this board. I think there was a handout. And we decided to go with ones that would be easily implemented by individual residents, and also things that the city is already doing, such as permeable pavement. And so the idea behind this is that if one person has a rain garden, it'll help their property. If one person has a rain barrel, it helps them. But we wanted to look at it as a community-wide program. So if everyone in the community were to do it, or a certain percentage, it would have a great impact. So here's 3 sites right here that the city of Cincinnati has identified as specifically having problems with stormwater management. And so it's Stewart Avenue, Orlando to Madison, right here. Orlando Place, Stewart to Peabody, and then Summer Street Road, Madison. And if you look at the photos, you can see there's no curb and gutter. It's just a lot of ponding issues, a lot of erosion, things like that. And so some of the solutions that could be implemented by residents, for instance, a rain garden. If one resident has a rain garden in their backyard that's 20 square feet by 20 square feet, it has the capacity to absorb enough rain that'll fill 18 bathtubs that are about 50 gallons each. So that's a lot of water. Rain barrels, kind of similar. If a typical Madisonville house has a roof footprint of 1,200 square feet, and they have a rain barrel at each one of the 4 downspouts on the house, it'll be 200 gallons worth of water before that goes. And then the permeable pavement strip, which the city has implemented in some places in Madisonville, if you have a 2-foot wide strip by 100 wide strip on lining the road, that can absorb about 374 gallons of water just in that small area. It's about 3 1/4 bathtubs. And after we looked at sort of general solutions that can be applied everywhere, we took two specific sites in Madisonville, Settle Street from Road Madison and Stewart Avenue from Orlando to Madison, and worked with some calculations to determine what it would really be like in real life. And Ian's going to cover that.
You don't have the picture? Oh, you're videotaping. Okay. All right. So these calculations that you see here are based on the what hydrologists would call SCF method, which basically, to put it in layman's terms, what we do with the SCF method based in algebra is a very simple equation, but it considers all the different land uses. We got industrial and commercial use, residential, open areas in fairly good condition, pavement, and then forest. So what I did was I broke this down and overlaid a 100-foot grid on top of each site and kind of qualitatively decided what were the relative proportions of each. I went back, it was kind of an iterative process, and looked to see if that kind of returned the overall area. So before I get into this, we're talking about here a 5-inch storm, or sorry, a 0.5-inch storm, and down here a 0.5-inch storm. But up here we have a 2-inch rainfall event. So when you're juxtaposing these in your mind, walking over here, I remembered a quote that a poli-sci professor wrote on one of my tests when I told him I skipped voting day. I can't remember who it was by, but he said, nobody made a bigger mistake than the guy who didn't do anything because he could only do too little. So that's what I want you guys to keep in your head. We're going to look at large-scale solutions next quarter to solve this huge quantity here, which is 73% full Olympic-sized swimming pool. It's a lot of water, but this 2-inch rain event occurs twice a year, about. The hard number there is 486,603. And again, that was derived by this weighted average. So this is the amount of runoff produced from a 2-inch storm. Coming down here, we've got kind of an assessment of how our green infrastructure solutions that residents would implement, how that would kind of match up. We've got a more frequent return interval here, a 0.5 rain event. That will produce 6,857 gallons of runoff, and that's indicated by this light blue outer raindrop here. If 10% of the residents on Settle, right here within this section, implemented that, you'd have 1,600 gallons, which is indicated by this little white here, and then 3,200, which is a little bit bigger, and then if 50%, this is an optimistic number, of course, but we're just showing what we could do if this trend took on, implemented the rain barrel solution. You'd have 8,000 gallons saved of runoff, that is. Dropping down here, we come to the a 5-inch interval again, or I keep saying 5-inch, half-inch, with rain gardens. And the numbers similarly, we have 10 people, we have 1,518, 3,000 roughly, and 7,590. So with that, I'm going to toss it back to Brittany. She can tell you about some other implementation plans that have gone on in other cities.
So the reason that we decided, we were thinking about just the community-wide implementation, we looked at Chicago. They had a rain barrel rollout day program where they gave residents rain barrels for really low cost just so they would add them in. Because as you can see by this little tiny white dot, that's the effect of one person doing it. That's how much water they save. But again, this is the amount of runoff created on just this one street. And so, you may be wondering, well, everybody knows it rains in Cincinnati, but how often does it really rain? How often do we really get runoff? That's what this right here represents. We took 361 days and we laid it into a grid. And so this right here shows there's 124 days of the year where it actually rains. And there's 29 days per year when there's runoff. And so, it is a big problem. And then again right here, it just shows in your average day, average rainfall per day, per month, it's really not that large of a number. But when you look at it, how it actually occurs, it is. And so, I guess sort of to conclude, we wanted to look at programs this quarter that were easily implementable and low cost and easy for residents to do, because together everybody could make a really large impact on managing stormwater. Questions?